Today's episode is brought to you by Audible. As you all know, my Audible pick for the month of March is The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. I am really getting into this book. I'm so glad that Mama Jennifer over at Community Book Center in New Orleans referred this book to me. It's entertaining, but it has this historical context to it, and I feel like I'm learning a lot, but also getting a different perspective on the whole Underground Railroad experience. And so I give it definitely, I definitely highly recommend it. Right now, Audible is offering my listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Use your free offer to download The Underground Railroad or any of the thousands of titles available on Audible right now. Just go to audibletrial.com/unicorns talk to get started today. Welcome to Unicorns Talk Podcast, your weekly girl talk about Black women, our healing, and manifestation. My name is Latrice Sampson Richards, your life enhancement coach, and together we're going to live, laugh, and learn to love all of life's little messes. While I am a licensed clinician, please keep in mind that this show is not a substitute for your own relationship with a mental health provider. Let's go. Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 63 of Unicorns Talk Podcast. My name is Latrice Sampson Richards. I am your life enhancement coach. And as usual, I'm super excited to be here with y'all today. Today's episode is really, really good, y'all. We're going to be talking with Dr. Tursha Hamilton about the effects our food has on our mental health. So I've been sharing my own wellness journey with y'all as I do my best to try to figure out this whole PCOS thing. So y'all already know that I have had a lot of ups and downs in my journey. And some of my villagers and also some of my clients also struggle with getting control of their eating habits and really struggle with seeing the effect that their eating is having on their mental health. And so I decided to sit down with someone who knows more about using food as medicine. So you're definitely in for a treat today. I'm not going to waste a whole lot more time because I'm ready to get into it. But if you haven't already, please make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you're listening right now. Use the hashtag Unicorns Talk Pod across all of your social media to let me know that you're listening. Make sure that you share it in your stories and things, share it on your timeline. It's very helpful to me when you share me with your people, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, okay? I'm super excited to be sitting here today with Dr. Tursha and to introduce her to y'all. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so
Absolutely.
excited to be having this conversation with you. Why don't we start off by just letting everybody know who you are, what you do, and why they should give a shit about what you have to say.
Well, first of all, you should give a shit because I'm the shit.
Yes, you
All right.
are.
But honestly speaking, I am Dr. Tursha Hamilton. I'm a naturopathic doctor. For those of you who've never heard that term before, it basically means that I'm a holistic physician, a holistic practitioner. Now, some people know the term homeopathic doctor.
Right.
So, what you perceive a homeopathic doctor to do is what I do, because that's a bit of a misnomer. The way that the way that most people understand it, but that's basically what I do. So, I went to a 4-year naturopathic medical school. There are those out here in the country. There's like 6, maybe 7 of them now in the US, 2 in Canada, and it's a 4-year medical school. We learn the same basic sciences, we learn the same ologies, but in those same 4 years, we also learn a lot of the holistic and natural, quote unquote, treatment methods. So we do a lot of diet and nutrition, which most of your physicians don't do.
Right.
We well over a year of nutrition, medical nutrition, well over a year of botanical medicine, well over a year of homeopathic medicine. In my school, we were taught acupuncture and Chinese medicine. There's hydrotherapy, using water as therapy. There's physical medicine, which is very similar to what chiropractors do, and a couple other things that I always forget. But basically, we learned how to write prescriptions, how to do minor surgery, along with all of those other things. And then we go into our clinical training at the school clinic or other clinics in the city, wherever our school is located. And we do like every other medical student, and we, under the supervision of an attending physician, we practice those things, let them guide us so that we can learn how to doctor, right? Why should you guys give a shit? Because honestly, the reason, I think, of course I'm biased, but the reason is because, for one, society needs it.
For sure.
We're a very toxic society, and it's an all around toxicity, mental toxicity. It's physical, it's emotional, it's dietary, it's did I say mental?
Yes,
I did. So
you
I must
could
have
say it
I must have
again.
needed to say it twice.
Yes, Lord.
Like the spiritual, emotional, physical, verbal, auditory, like all the senses. We are bombarded with toxicity. Think about it. As soon as you wake up, and I know I'm guilty of this. I actually just made a post about this yesterday because I read an article that kind of knocked me down and made me realize that I needed to change. As soon as you wake up in the morning, what you do? Pick up your phone and you go to social media and all the crap that's on social media. The music that you listen to, most of the time, is not the most uplifting music that we listen to. So we're being fed that through our ears. What do we see? We see crime. We see poverty. We see people belittling each other. We see arguments. So that's toxic. The air is not as fresh as it should be. So we're getting that in our noses, that toxicity. Our food is full of herbicides and pesticides and fungicides, and our water has the runoff on everything. Especially here in New Orleans, we get all the trash from everywhere up in the top of the country,
right?
Because we're at the bottom of the river,
right?
So the medicine that I practice is my attempt to help people actually heal and get better. It's becoming more and more difficult just because society and our bodies are becoming more burdened with crap. But that's basically what it is that I do. And I love teaching. Teaching is my jam.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I can reach more people if I can teach more people and educate them on how and why to do certain things, and hopefully get it to be a part of their everyday lives. You said something earlier that I did want to comment on, and you were talking about clean eating and how you started doing it and how you started doing it every day. That is one of the biggest keys into holistic wellness, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, commercial, whatever it is that consistency piece. Yeah. If we can take something that we know is beneficial to ourselves and start doing it every day so that it just becomes what you do, then you grow healthy, right? What we tend to see is people growing more ill because their actions, their thoughts, their environment is one that everything that is happening is moving you toward illness. Well, if you can reverse some of those things, then you can just automatically be moving toward health. And so 80, 90 pounds later, it's just what you do. That's just how you eat. It doesn't have to have a label. It doesn't have to have any effort anymore. It's just what you do. And now you're at the point where you can add the next piece so that becomes a part of your routine. So, whenever you all are ready to make changes, don't think about them as, oh my God, I have to change everything in my life, because you might need to. But if you can start doing it in such a way that it becomes habitual, then it's not as hard.
Yeah, that has been the biggest struggle for me, is because I move around so much. Like with my regular job, my 9-to-5 job, I travel a lot. Like I just got back from Germany. Before that, I was in Cuba, for 10 months. Like I move around.
I want you.
Well, it wasn't real Cuba, girl. It was.
I don't mind being in fake Cuba.
Yeah, it was Guantanamo Bay. That's not real Cuba,
That's
but
all right. It's still not here.
You're right. And that's good. Like I really am grateful to have those experiences. Like I've literally traveled the world, like doing counseling, doing the work that I love and helping people to get their lives on track and speaking and educating and teaching people. And I love it, I do.
Mhm.
But it makes it extremely difficult to be able to find balance because
Right.
I'm constantly moving, constantly on the go. And I know that a lot of people experience the same thing,
Mhm.
not necessarily on an international scale, but just in our day to day lives, like we have kids and we have work and we have social responsibilities and we have all of these other things that are vying for our attention, and we feel this sense of obligation to be able to fulfill those things, and it can get extremely difficult to put mental effort into your own healing,
Right.
physical or whatever it might be. And so that has been a huge struggle for me, as I embark on this journey. And I know that it's played a major role. And, we talked about the eating, which is what we're primarily going to talk about
Mhm.
today, is clean eating and
Mhm.
the effect that it has on our mental health.
Mhm.
And, what made me want to have this conversation is because I was diagnosed with PCOS in 2016 when I was in Japan, which is a whole story in and of itself.
I'm sure.
Because why the fuck I had to go to Japan to get diagnosed with PCOS? You know what I'm saying? Like, I have been going to doctors and telling them my symptoms. Some of my symptoms are visual
Right.
symptoms. Like, you can just look at me
Mhm.
and see that these are like the hallmarks of PCOS. And I'm telling these doctors, like, this, something is wrong. And they just say, oh, well, you're fat,
Right. I was just
and
about to
so,
say that.
but
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but with PCOS, like, yeah, I'm fat, but the PCOS is a part of the reason why I'm fat. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like, or a part of the reason why I struggle to lose the weight.
Mhm.
And so that, is a whole other conversation about Black women not being taken seriously by our
That's a
doctors.
whole nother
And
conversation.
yes, it
Yeah.
is. And, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I wanted to have this conversation because once I got my PCOS diagnosis, the doctor that I had, he had privileges in the Japanese hospital that I was in, but he is a U.S. doctor. He's based in
Okay.
California, in Southern California. And he said, he told me, he said, I don't want to do medication first. And I fell in love with that man, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm not into medications and stuff like
Right.
that. Because the most common treatment modalities for PCOS is, Clomid and metformin.
Mhm.
And, I've had some indirect experiences with metformin in the past, and I wasn't even trying to put that in my system. But he said to me, he said, let's see if we can get this under control strictly using your diet. And he told me that this is completely manageable with diet alone. And that for me was extremely encouraging. So that's when I started doing more research and buying the books and all of that. And I made the changes. I did get more active, and I started making the changes with my eating, and I started to see the weight kind of come off. And then once I started taking the inositol, which is, I want to say it's vitamin B8. And if you take the inositol in high dosages, it really helps to manage your hormones and helps your body to break down your carbs the way that it really actually needs to be broken down.
Mhm.
And I really did notice a difference, not just in my body, but also in my mental clarity and how I was feeling emotionally. And as I started to fall off of my routine of doing things, with life taking over and everything like that, I noticed that change and that difference as well. Like going back to really, like, struggling mentally to focus, and struggling to find energy, struggling to
Mhm.
find motivation and things like that. And so I've been having questions about how to get back on track, and like what is this thing,
Mhm.
like what is that connection, because you can only Google but so much,
Right.
you can only understand but so much via Google, and
Right.
sometimes you just need to have that conversation and hear things. And I always prefer to get my information from other Black folk, because I do feel like we are, to a certain extent, we do require a different type of treatment, you know? And so what works for other folks doesn't always work for us, or we don't always get the same type of benefits. And so I wanted to have this conversation with you today. So my first question is, I guess, just the general kind of question, and then we'll kind of whittle that down as we move on. But what is the connection between our eating habits and our mental and emotional functioning? How do those two things connect?
The first thing that you want to keep in mind that a lot of people forget is that everything is connected. So how can anybody say what you put in your mouth does not affect your brain? It's the same body. Your circulatory system feeds the entire body.
Yeah.
What is going in your mouth goes into your bloodstream, connects to the entire body. So just from that point of view, you have to realize that anything that happens to one part of your body is happening to the rest of your body. It may not be as evident because there are different receptors and cells and biochemical processes that happen to greater extents in different parts of the body, but it happens everywhere, right? For example, how is it that you can take the same ibuprofen for a headache and for a toe ache?
Right.
Because it's happening in the same body. It's the entire body. It's not like you're taking ibuprofen head formula and toe formula. It's the same body. So your food is the exact same way. If it's going to be healthful, it's going to be healthful for the entire body. If it's going to be harmful, it's going to be harmful for the entire body. It just may manifest itself in different ways that you don't even realize, because the changes are so minute, or they're so low-key and consistent. They're always there and you don't realize it. Prime example, I went to naturopathic medical school in my early 30s. So, I'm already older than most of my classmates.
Right.
And I have certain life experiences or whatever, right? There was one time in my late 20s, early 30s, I went and visited a childhood friend. When I went there, he said, "You got that same cold that you had when we were children?" I was like, "Oh, I guess I do."
Right.
Always just low level, like basically like I am now, mucousy, congested, not ill, but just kind of mucousy and congested. Went to naturopathic medical school, and we were talking about milk and, milk proteins and how it affects the body. And I decided to challenge myself and not have any dairy, no cheese, no yogurt. It was so difficult, right? Within a week or so, I realized I could breathe out of both of my nostrils. I was never able to breathe out of both of my nostrils. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
Like I had literally, I did not know that was possible, but I was able to breathe out of both nostrils at the same time. When I decided I was going to break that dairy fast, I remember the first one, I don't even remember what the first thing is I had, but I remember somebody in school shortly after that had some cheesecake. And I was like, all right, I'll have a little piece. Had a little piece of the cheesecake, and when I tell you, within 30 seconds, my entire nose filled up with mucus. Why would I think that eating a certain food would congest my nose, would make my nose not be able to breathe? I'm not eating with my nose.
Right.
Right? It's going through my mouth, which is underneath my nose, and into my digestive system, which is way below my nose, but it's affecting my nose. And people have responses like that all the time. It could be, arthritis of the knee. It could be brain fog. It could be irritability. It can be constipation that's not necessarily caused because you're eating crap, but it could be because you're eating something that your body doesn't like and it's stopping the motion. There's so many things that can clear up. So when we are eating the way that we tend to eat, which is not clean by any means, most of the time, our bodies has to figure out how to process and what to do with all that extra crap, garbage, metabolic waste, the
additives,
additives, the
yeah,
colors, the all the sides,
sugar,
the extra sugar, all of that stuff. Your body has to know what to deal with. And if your body is not functioning properly or optimally, I should say, then it's going to struggle to get rid of that stuff. And you're bombarding, you're constantly eating. So you're never giving it an opportunity to work on what you already have. That's like somebody always shopping and always bringing stuff in the house and never having a time to clean out the house. So then you become a hoarder. So your body sort of, oh, let me just put that in the corner because I can't deal with that now. I have to process what's coming in right now. So that's one part of it.
So it's almost like you become a toxic hoarder.
You absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know of any type of hoarder that's not toxic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can have a whole bunch of a good thing, but then is it really a good thing anymore? Or is it still too much?
Yeah.
So there's that. Like there's a whole toxicity piece, and one of the things we call it is body burden. Your body gets burdened by even the regular waste products that your body creates just because you're living, because now you have all this other stuff around and it doesn't know what to do with any of it, and it starts to affect every other part of your body. And then the things that, as they're broken down by your digestive system and by your body and used, they go through all of the small spaces, so they can cross the blood-brain barrier and affect your brain directly. But also, as you may or may not know, as your audience may or may not know, you have as many or maybe more. Recently I heard it was more, but I'm not sure. I hadn't fact checked that. But you have at least as many neurons in your gut, in your surrounding your intestines as you have in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even if nothing goes into your brain directly, the fact that you have as many brain cells or neurons, nervous system cells in your GI system as you have in your brain means that half your nervous system is in your gut. So if your body is not liking or can't use what you have, it's going to affect your nervous system, which is half of it is your brain and spinal cord.
Yeah, when I teach about being able to get in touch with that internal voice and trusting your gut instinct, I really break it down, because those neurons are very similar, and it's a lot of the same chemicals.
Exactly, it's the exact same chemicals.
Yeah, that exist in your brain that also exist in your gut.
Right.
So when we talk about having a gut instinct, it's a literal thing. Yep. Like it's a very literal thing, because your brain is saying, "Mayday, mayday, mayday, something ain't right." So I always try to break it down to like the minimal level, like the absolute lowest level, right, so people can understand the connection that exists in our guts and in our brains. So when we are not sure about something, or you get that feeling about something in your gut instinct, it's a real thing. Like that's your body's natural defense mechanism trying to tell you that something is not right and something needs to be done about that.
Correct.
Yeah. So what is clean eating? Because it's a really trendy topic, and everybody has a different, like, if you find 5 articles on clean eating, you're going to get
7 different,
what I'm saying?
7 different opinions.
Yes. So what is clean eating, and what does it mean to eat clean? Is it strictly veganism, or is each individual person's idea of clean eating or what your body needs in terms of what is clean versus what is not clean different? How does that work?
Well, the last question, because everybody is individual, everybody does have different needs. So it can vary from person to person what that means for that particular individual. And you're absolutely right. There are a lot of different definitions of clean eating. I was trying to look it up recently, and I couldn't come up with a succinct definition for it either. But the way that I understand it, the way that I interpret it, is you are eating in a way that's most optimal for your body. You are putting the least amount of foreign crap in your body and the most amount of nutritious whole foods in your body as possible. So that doesn't just mean eating lots of fruit and vegetables, which it absolutely means, because my personal opinion is whether you decide you want to be vegan, vegetarian, or not, you should still be eating predominantly plant food. But that's not always just enough, because the plant food that we eat is not always clean, right?
Right.
Again, going back to the pesticides and herbicides and all the sides that's sprayed on our food very heavily, or now you have those things that are actually injected into the DNA of our food. Shout out to GMOs, right? So it's actually in the DNA of the food. Well, if the plant can produce a chemical that is supposed to be made to kill another living being, it's going to affect you, because all living beings have connection. So clean eating, the way that I interpret it, is eating your food as close to source as possible. As close to it as it was when it came out of the ground. As close as it was when it came off the tree. If you eat meat, eating it as minimally processed as possible, or as close to the kill date as possible, from an animal who hopefully was able to live free and roam the earth as naturally as possible, right? That's not as possible for most of us, but in my opinion, in my interpretation of it, coming as close to that as possible as you can is what clean eating is. So it looks different for everybody. Everybody can't afford to eat 100% organic. Everybody can't, go hunting for their own venison or bison or whatever. You have to depend on what's at your local grocery store or your local butcher or whatever. So you do the best that you can.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. One of the things that I told my husband, he laughed at me, but I'm serious, that I want to start like a little garden.
Yes.
And we live in an apartment right now. But I still feel like that's something that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
Like a little potted garden or something like on the patio or something like that, just being able to grow our own, maybe not vegetables just yet. I don't know, maybe we could. Yeah.
I actually had a student who lived in an apartment. She lived on the second floor, and she had a little patio garden. So this was in Illinois, so of course Illinois has winter, but when the snow would melt and it started to get warmer, she put her pots back on the patio and she planted her stuff. And so I don't even remember what she had, but I was like, you can grow, what? For real? Like, she was growing some stuff. Now, mind you, she wasn't able to grow all her meals, but she was able to grow enough that it was able to supplement what she ate. So, leafy green vegetables can be grown almost year round, depending on where you live and the climate. But there are your summer leafies and your winter leafies. Like kale, like those hardier ones, are winter leafies. Like late fall, winter. You can grow those in a pot.
Right.
Spinach and those type things, those are more summer, so you can grow that in a pot. Or if you want to do tomatoes, grow your tomatoes, right? You can grow, I've seen this. I tried it a little bit and it didn't quite work, but then my situation wasn't ideal. Like, you can grow potatoes. Like, there are certain things that you absolutely can grow, and it's fun to try. Even if it doesn't work, why not try? So absolutely, start growing some stuff.
Yeah. So even when I've started going out and like looking for stuff and, kind of just pricing it and looking at what would it actually take to like grow a garden. Because unfortunately, for most of us, especially in the Black community, we're not socialized and taught on how to grow our food. We are very much dependent on processed foods. And I really made a shift. Even before I got my PCOS diagnosis, I started making the shift away from processed foods. I remember I was living in Fort Polk, Louisiana at the time. And that's when I made the decision to, consciously pull away from processed foods as much as I could. And I really started making the effort to try to cook as much as I can. But not just cooking, but like even preparing things that we traditionally buy, like spaghetti sauce, and things like Tony Sachery, you know what I'm saying? Like you can find recipes
Absolutely.
online for all of those things, and not just like a seasoning salt recipe. Like you can actually find a recipe for Tony Sachery's,
Yep.
and you can make your own at home, and you can modify it to your liking. Like I don't like a lot of salt in my food. I don't cook with a lot of salt. So even when I was making my Tony Sachery mix or whatever based on the recipe, I dialed back on the salt because I didn't feel like I needed as
Right.
that much salt. So I make my own taco seasoning.
Yeah.
And it's actually better, I think,
Yeah.
than the stuff that I put in there. And it opened my world up to all of these different spices. Like I was like, damn, I didn't even know. Like you go on the spice aisle and
you pick up the
see
same four that you always pick
the
up.
same ones, the same ones every
Yes.
single time. But there are so many different spices that are natural, and they have, they have so much flavor, and you can get that flavor profile without having all of that salt and everything like that, or all of those additives and things like that. So my spice cabinet is like off the damn chain now because like I have ground mustard in my cabinet. I have sage, I have, oregano, I have dill, like I have all of these different spices that I just never had before because it's not something that's traditionally used. I've really got into cooking more, which I love cooking, and trying out different recipes and trying out different ways of doing things. And even like with the sugar, like I never was so much into too much sweet. I like candy and stuff. My grandmother was the candy lady growing up, so that's like girl, but not like I like fruity candies.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like candy, like Laffy Taffies and Now and Laters, and because I grew up.
That's what the candy lady
that's
had.
what the candy lady had. Big bowls. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what the candy lady had. So like those kind of candies, and but outside of that, just pure sugar is not really my thing. Like even when I make tea and stuff, like nobody wants to drink my tea because they say it's not enough sugar. Like
that's probably the delicious.
I like the flavor of tea. Like tea has a flavor,
right? Not just sweet.
Not just sweet, not just sugar water, brown sugar water.
Right.
And so talk a little bit about the impact that sugar has on our body, but then also like this pervasive nature of the sugar industry in America. Sugar is in everything. So talk a little bit about that.
So there's a lot of different ways we can talk about that. But what I will start with is that sugar and salt are extremely addictive. We don't know how to survive without it. Just recently, actually over the last couple months, I had been posting, and this is sort of mining for information, but I was posting information about how would you survive if you had no more salt. I actually just reposted it on my personal page to ask my family. And just last night, I had this discussion with one of my little cousins, and she was like, I would die, like if you couldn't eat salt, how would you survive? I would die, I wouldn't eat. These are all the responses that I got. And I'm like, why? Her brother responded, and he's a chef. He's like, I just wouldn't eat, or something to that effect. And I'm like, really, chef? You just not gonna eat never again because you can't have salt? And I was like, where's your imagination? And then she jumped in and was like, you can't eat imagination. Actually, every single time you eat, you're eating imagination because somebody had to think of that meal. So absolutely you can eat imagination because that's what you're eating. Anytime you go to a new restaurant, you're trying to figure out how the chef imagined that dish. Of course you're eating imagination. But sugar and salt are very addictive, so we don't know that we can survive without it. there are lots of studies that show that the same addiction centers in the brain light up as when somebody's taking hard drugs, your cocaine, your heroin, all those things. So, when we say that sugar is addictive, salt is addictive, like literally we're talking about addiction for reals,
Yeah.
not just something that we're saying. But we don't explore, so we don't know what else is out there. And so we just feel like this is it. If you're not in that mindset, if you've not been introduced to that, if you've not been given permission to think that way, then you don't even know that that exists. But the addiction is absolutely real. Another thing that we were having a discussion about on that same post, I believe, is us not knowing the true flavor of food. All the food that we eat don't need as much salt, sugar as we put on it. It absolutely doesn't.
What is the effect that the excess salt and sugar has on our mental clarity? You talked about the addiction and things like that, but how does it affect our ability to function?
Well, just a spoonful of sugar makes the immune system not work for so many minutes, right? So a very small amount of sugar impacts your immune system, which means that it's impacting your nervous system, which means that it's impacting your brain. And of course, most of us are not just eating a spoonful. Like a soda is much more than a spoonful.
Yeah.
And that's just a soda, not talk about everything that we have along with the soda. It stimulates your body, which is why a lot of people have the sugar, because it's an upper, but then it makes you crash. You can't think when you're crashed, right? You cannot think when your blood sugar is low, when your energy reserves are low, and when you constantly have that high and low of sugar crash, you damage your cells. So that's one way. Basically, it just short circuits your brain.
Yeah.
Right, in a lot of different ways, which is why a lot of people will have mental clarity when they drink coffee with a lot of sugar, because they're buzzing and they're high and then nothing. But you do that over time and you don't get as much of that mental clarity. So you keep having to increase, just like every other junkie, right? You have to keep increasing the dose so that you can get the same effect that you had the first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, long story short, it short circuits your brain, and then it causes like the waste accumulation that your body has to try to figure out how to get rid of all this excess, and that affects your brain.
Yeah.
Right. That affects your brain so that you can't think as much. And it might be as little, as small, I say small, but it's not really small, as not being able to think very clearly to something major. Within the last year or two, researchers or, brain experts have been calling Alzheimer's diabetes type 3.
Wow.
Because they're finding that Alzheimer's is impacted by what you're eating, by like sugar and its impact on sugar. So everything from a little bit of I can't think right now to potentially Alzheimer's and dementia and other brain diseases are directly affected by how and what you're eating.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I didn't know that. I'm definitely gonna have to do a little bit more research on that. Like with the PCOS, the big thing for me is carbs. And I know that a lot of people really, really struggle with carbs. And what I'm learning is that carbs are extremely addictive as well.
Yeah.
Because carbs break down into sugar, right? Talk to me a little bit about like the carbs and how the carbs really affect our ability to function. What is it about carbs? Because it's like this, we need them, right? But then at the same time, they end up doing so much damage because we go overboard with them. And it's almost like a cyclical kind of experience. So talk a little bit more about that.
So carbs are important. The type of carbs that we have are what can be the culprit. If you were to eat more of the quote unquote complex carbohydrates, you should not have the same response. In the beginning, you might, because your body is still trying to adjust to the shifts in what you're eating and how you're eating. But as you continue, you should not have the same levels of highs and lows. If you were eating more of the sweet potatoes, more of the whole fruit, more of the whole vegetables, more of the beans, those are very carb heavy, but they are also nutrient heavy and fiber heavy. So with the chips and the crackers, because those are more simple carbs, they're processed, they have very little nutrients, they have very little fiber. And once they hit your body, it's broken down very soon. And so it turns into simple sugars very quickly. Whereas with the other foods, like I said, the sweet potatoes and the beans and those types of things, they don't break down as quickly because your body has to work a little harder to get to the carbohydrates because of all of the fiber and the other stuff. And so that actually slows part of that response down when you have the fiber and the antioxidants and the nutrients that the body has to kind of work through. When you're eating those simple carbs, like I said, you have a quick breakdown, your blood sugar rises quickly, your insulin levels rise quickly, so they chew up and go through the sugar that you do have very quickly, so your blood sugar can dip and plummet, which will signal to your body that you're hungry again and want more. So that's why it's very easy to go into this vicious cycle of, I ate some chips, now I'm ravenous and I want something else, because you haven't actually fed your body. So that goes into another point. Oftentimes when we're hungry, our body is screaming for nutrients. The way we interpret it, because the way we've been taught to interpret it, is that we want something quick and tasty, which is usually not the healthiest option and is usually not what our body is craving. So another part of that is you could be very full and still be kind of hungry because you're not giving your body exactly what it needs. It might need magnesium, it might need potassium, it might need those, the blue or the red or the orange antioxidants that come from whole foods, whole vegetables, and fruit. But you're not able to interpret it because you haven't learned how to speak that language. So you're giving it what you know to give it. And the more you eat the cookies and the praline candy and those things, right? Of course, I know. The more you eat that, the more your body's like, no, that's not what I need. Like, I need water. And you're like, oh, thirsty? Soda. No, I need water. So you keep interpreting it wrong and you keep feeding it what it's not asking for. And so you're going to have that vicious cycle. So that's two things. The third piece is the mindfulness piece. Part of the issue with binge eating, as you mentioned, or with a lot of the way that we live, is doing things on habit, not recognizing it. And so when you can recognize the behavior, that can give you the opportunity to figure out specifically what's going on, work through it, feel it, and then allow it to pass, as opposed to feeding it mindlessly, and moving further into a direction that you don't want to move. So that's another part of it, is being mindful about what we're doing along with what we're eating, the quality of what we're eating, and how that vicious cycle is started and continued in our bodies.
Definitely. So, how do we begin to make that shift? Because I know a lot of people are interested in like we said before, it's kind of trending right now, like clean eating and being healthy. And you got the keto diet and all of these other things. It's kind of like a trending kind of thing to do. But a lot of us struggle to be able to make that transition for a lot of different reasons. We either have budgetary, obstacles. We can't always afford those types of foods and things like that. Some of us don't have time to be able to do those things. Like, how can we begin the process of making that transition from eating and not providing our body with the nourishment that it needs to more of a clean lifestyle and really kind of giving our body the nutrients and things that are in its best interest?
There's several different ways that you can begin down that process. So one way is the mental. And usually anytime I'm teaching anything, I always start with the mental part of it. Making the decision to do it. You already know that anything that we decide that we're going to do, we're going to find a way to make it happen. So you have to make the decision that that's really important and that's what you want to do. Right? And not just the lip service, because all of us will say, oh yeah, I really do want to do it. But if we really wanted to, we'd make it happen. Yeah. Like, you really don't want, like, for real, you don't really for real want to.
And there's a lot of different reasons why people don't want to. You know, I had to think about my own reasons. And one of the things which I feel like I have worked through this at this point in my life. But one of the things that I really had to face was I've always been the big girl, you know, and I was always like the cute big girl, you know, like I got a little shape or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And so like I've always been the cute big friend, right? And I think mentally for me, emotionally, more so than mentally, emotionally, it had become a part of who I was.
That's your identity.
It is. It became a huge part of my identity. And so I think a part of me subconsciously was like, well, if I lose weight, if I get down to a 14 or a 16 or whatever it might be, like if I lose the weight, then who am I at that point? Like, what makes me stand out from all of the other girls that's the same size, you know? And that was an emotional thing that I had to really confront and address and learn how to be comfortable with myself at any stage, at any weight, at any size, at any shape. And that was a part of my own process. So that those hangups come from all different places, and we definitely have to get creative about how we identify what those things are for ourselves.
Absolutely. And so that is like the next part of it, of the mental piece of it, is once you make the decision, you analyze what your hangups are around that change that you want to make. And for you realized it was part of your identity. Now you have to do the work to unpack all of that years and years of you identifying as the cute big girl. Like, who am I if I'm not the cute big girl? You're still cute. You still, like, if you're 16, you're still a big girl. You're just not as big. Those things you have to unpack. And so then it becomes, what got you to that point? So it's a lot of mental work that needs to go behind it. We don't realize it. And it doesn't have to all happen at one time.
Right.
That's another piece. We try to do everything at the same time. If you have time constraints, you have monetary constraints, you have whatever constraints you have, you don't have to do everything right now. But you have to decide that it's important enough to actually start. So if you don't have the budget to change your diet right now, you can absolutely change how you eat. You can be more mindful when you eat. You don't have to eat on the go all the time. Chew your food. Swallow before you take the next bite. Swallow before you drink. Don't gulp. Sip. Taste the actual whatever it is that you're eating.
Slow down.
Slow down.
Yeah.
And that will be huge, because even if you're eating the same thing, what you will notice is that you don't need as much of whatever it is that you're eating. Your body will actually start to signal when it's full. Once you start to change how you eat, your body is free to start to respond differently.
Yeah.
But the memories we have, we override the system and we eat it anyway. When I decreased how much sugar I had, I couldn't go back. Like, I'll eat something and it was too sweet. But because I remember it being the thing that I loved, I kept eating it. And then I got desensitized to it again. Right? And so I wasn't honoring my body or my taste buds. We have to get to a point where we honor what we say, but we have to give the body an opportunity to clear out a bunch of the crap so that we can actually hear those messages.
I was thinking, when you were saying that, I was thinking about, that's how it is now for me with crawfish. And that was a hard one for me to you know what I'm saying? Because, girl, like, I grew up like everybody else in New Orleans.
Everybody get a pound.
Listen, my daddy ain't never needed a reason to get a sack of crawfish and ball some crawfish. Like my daddy, like he loves a good crawfish ball, good seafood ball. But I've been away for so long that like I haven't been eating crawfish on a regular basis in years,
Right.
And so I remember last year sometime, or maybe even the year before that, I came home and I had just had it on my mind. I need to get some crawfish because I see my line sisters. I see during crawfish season every year, no matter where I am in the world, I see people talking about crawfish season and how like just they murking this crawfish. You know what I'm saying? And I just be like, damn, I miss crawfish. Like, man, I wish I could be there, get me some crawfish. So it was on my mind. I'm going to get this crawfish. Like this is happening. And so I got like 5 pounds of crawfish or whatever. And I'm eating the crawfish, and the first bite, it was like salt overload.
Yep.
And I was just like, damn, I don't remember crawfish tasting like this, but this is crawfish, and I'm from New Orleans, and I'm going to eat this crawfish because I haven't had crawfish in so long.
And 5 pounds later.
I didn't even make it through the whole 5 pounds because I would say maybe about 10, 15, 20 minutes into it, girl, feel like my fingers got so swole up and fat, and like my like, you can feel when that salt is fluid is building up or whatever. And I don't walk around with fluid. Like I thankfully, outside of the PCOS, I don't have any health issues. You know what I'm saying? Which people tend to be surprised by. But overall, I eat well, I like salads and vegetables and stuff like that. I don't really use a lot of salt. I don't really do a lot of sugar, stuff like that. So in general, I eat pretty good, So when something happens, I feel it. I notice it. Like when something is not right, I can tell that something is not right. And as I'm eating the crawfish, I feel my fingers plumping up. I feel, and it's not like an allergic reaction. It's that tightness that comes with fluid being in your body. And I was like, I can't even finish a damn bag of crawfish. Are you serious? And I haven't had crawfish since, and as much as I miss the nostalgia of it, I can't do it. It's too much salt. I just cannot do it because my body is not used to operating at that level of salt intake anymore. When we talk about that lifestyle and the mindset and things like that, a lot of it is cultural, like in our families, it's just kind of built into the structure of our families because that's just all we've ever known. Like my daddy loves to cook. And I always tell people, if you come to my parents' house, my daddy gonna offer you something to eat, just take it because he's not going to let it go. Like you are not going to leave my daddy house without eating something. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we show love. Right. And that's his expression of love. That's how he welcomes you into his household and everything like that.
You need to go see your daddy.
Listen, okay, girl, I need to get something to eat right now. But when I was away for a while and then I come home and he'll cook something, I say, I don't eat that. Well, you used to eat it, but I don't eat it anymore. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost like he takes offense to that. Like the fact that I don't eat, the things that we used to eat. I don't eat pig's feet no more. I don't eat this, that, and the other. It's almost like he takes offense.
Because you're challenging him. You're challenging tradition. You're challenging what he knows, what he loves. You're bucking the system. And how dare you?
Yeah.
So a lot of us who are on this journey of health struggle with that part of it, with how do I bring this new lifestyle, this new me, this new version of me into my family and survive.
Yeah. So do you have any, like if you could give one piece of advice that is just, a general catch-all kind of piece of advice, what would that be to help people in this journey who are trying to get their eating under control, who struggle with being able to find motivation and energy and mental clarity and things like that? What would that be?
So many things just rush through my mind right now because it's so much that I'd love to say. I guess the one thing is keep it simple, sweetheart. Keep it simple. I have a habitual habit, not just a habit, but a habitual habit of trying to overdo everything. Like I said, I'm pretty all or nothing. So when I make a choice to be healthier, or I feel like I want to eat better, then I'm gung ho about it. That's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Start simple. Pick one of the things that we discussed and incorporate it simply. Eat one apple.
Mm-hmm.
Get a small one.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know if you like apples, get a small one. Eat one apple. Before your meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yeah.
And start there. Like, make it simple. You want to start drinking more water? Drink a little bit of water before you have your soda. It doesn't have to be a gallon. Drink a little bit and then build on it. Like, keep it simple, start, and then build.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Has been my process, because if I'm going to replace, like if I'm going to remove certain things from my diet, I have to replace them with other things. And so it was a gradual process for me, like I said, with the processed foods and things like that. I didn't just jump all in and say, I ain't buying nothing no more and this, that, and the other. Like, I had to try a few different things out. I tried out this recipe. That recipe wasn't for me. So I tried something else. Or like what I learned is that I can't make my own spaghetti sauce. That's just not my thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I gave it a try. But I can make my own taco seasoning.
Yeah.
I can make my own Tony Chachere's season, and it doesn't take a whole lot out of me to be able to do that. So now that's something that is a regular part of what I'm doing. And it might seem like a really small change, but it's huge because I love tacos. So I eat a lot of tacos. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm even at the point now where I'm taking the meat out of my tacos.
Good.
And so I do like beans and corn and like different other things to give me that texture where I still can get the taco, like it's still a taco, it's just not with any meat in it.
Right.
So kind of elevating that recipe, taking the things that I love and finding other ways to be able to do that, and just doing it gradually over time has really been like a huge thing for me. But that's something that I had to learn. I think the recurring thing that we've talked about, but specifically that you've identified, is just having this awareness and being intentional about the choices and the decisions that we made or make as it relates to the food that we're putting in our bodies, because it is very closely connected to how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our world and our experiences, how we see things, how we understand things. All of those things are connected. And so thank you so much. Go ahead and let the people know how they can get in touch with you, follow you, get more information from you and about you.
Absolutely.
Let them know.
So my website is www.drtursha.com. That's DRTURSHA.com. And my social media, it's Facebook, Twitter. I'm on Facebook mostly, but I have Twitter, I have Instagram, YouTube, and they're all at Dr. Tursha. So again, DRTURSHA. You can find me on any of them there. I'm most active right now on Facebook and sometimes on Instagram. So if you want to follow me social media, you can. I blog every week. So you can go to my website and sign up for my newsletter and get the latest blog every week to learn, just whatever musings come from my mind at the time. So that's how you can contact me.
Yeah, and she also does live streams on Facebook and everything like that. Dr. Tursha is, like I said, I've been following for a while, and you are definitely a wealth of knowledge, and I wish you all the success. The last thing is I have a segment on the show called High Five, because I love a good high five, And so a high five is basically when I acknowledge someone who has said, done, or just is somebody that I feel needs to be celebrated. And so since you are a guest today, do you have any high fives for today?
Somebody that I would like to celebrate?
Somebody that you would like to celebrate, somebody that you would like to give a high five. You can know them or not, just somebody who said or done something that really resonated with you and you believe they deserve a high five.
I'm going to say, shout out to Mrs. Leah Chase. I went to her restaurant recently, like a few weeks ago, because I was like, I'm not going to leave this city without having gone, and I'm going to meet this woman, right? So I went there, we went to the buffet, and I asked if we could meet her. She was there. Of course, she's always there when the restaurant is open. And we went back. I didn't even know what to say because I was just like, that is a beautiful woman.
Yes, she is.
That is a beautiful woman. She is like everybody's grandmother, everybody's like, elder. Just a beautiful soul. Yeah. And I just want to sit at her feet and just watch her be grumpy and talk to people and boss people around and just like spit knowledge in between all of that. So shout out to Miss Leah Chase.
Yes, high five to Miss Leah Chase. I second that high five. So Miss Chase gets a high 10 today.
Yes.
She's awesome and amazing. If you've never been to Dookie Chase, you need to go ahead and do yourself a favor. She is definitely a pillar of the community here in New Orleans. And so high 10 to Miss Leah Chase.
Yes. She's in her mid 90s?
I think so.
She just turned like 95, 96.
I think so. But you know that good black don't crack. That's what they say.
Right.
You know?
She goes to work every day. She's, when we were talking, she talked about being a black woman in the South and having a business and so like she touched on so much of that and how young people don't listen to nobody right now and just like that type of thing. And so it wasn't just about food and work. It was about just being and being in your space. So high 10 to her. Absolutely.
High 10 to her for sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Tursha.
Thank you for having me.
This was awesome and amazing. I'm so grateful. If there's anything that I can do to help you along your journey, or if I feel like we're gonna collaborate again because I have ideas, you know.
Right.
And so we're gonna make some things happen. And so I appreciate you for coming out.
Thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
All of her information is going to be in the show notes. So y'all make sure you check it out and reach out to Dr. Tursha with all of your naturopathic healing questions. Yes. And she is open to working with people. And if you need some help getting your whole life in order, Dr. Tursha can definitely help you out with that. All right. All right. I do want to give a few shout outs today. Of course, definitely want to give a shout out to Black Married Fly podcast. The first installment of Heart to Heart with Latrice Sampson Richards actually kicked off on Monday. So I'm super excited and proud of that. Thank you so much to Candace and Trev for giving me this opportunity. Y'all make sure y'all check it out. If you haven't checked it out, if you have checked it out, go ahead, let me know what you think or whatever. It's a really good topic. The first topic that we talked about is how to find a real one. So you'll be able to catch these little snippets on blackmarriedfly.com on the second and fourth Monday of every month. And the first one, like I said, is already out. I also want to give a shout out to Rain Coleman over at Carefree Black Nerd. Hey, Rain. I just want to say, hey, boo, hey. I love Rain and his show, Carefree Black Nerd. If you're a black nerd or if you just like black nerd shit, that's definitely the show for you. I also want to give a shout out to Jaden Hollywood, my boo-boo. Hey, boo. Jaden Hollywood, just for always holding me down or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you purchase your Unicorns Talk podcast t-shirts. Head over to the website and do that. I can't wait to see y'all on Monday at 7:30 p.m. on my Instagram page for Unicorns Talk Back, which is a live show recap kind of. We just talk about the episode and or whatever. Come out and hang out with me. Join my free Facebook group, Trust Village, a safe space for healing and manifestation. We would love to have you be a part of the village, okay? And follow me on all of the social medias, Facebook and Instagram, at Latrice Sampson Richards. That's all I got for y'all today. I can't wait to talk to y'all again and to see y'all on Monday or whatever. Come on and holler at me. I love y'all and I appreciate y'all. And until next time, be well. Bye, y'all.